Oh God, I'm so ready for this to be the last recap. And just like that, season 1, episode 10, the series or season finale. I guess it's the season finale. There might be a season 2. I am here with you, Jen Kirkman. Thanks for subscribing. Che Diaz has canceled their own podcast. There is no more X, Y, and Me. Woo! Woo-hoo! Our long national nightmare is over. Is this what people felt like, that photo of the soldier bending the woman over and kissing her on D-Day? Is that what the nation felt like? Oh my God, it's over. It's really over. We can go back to normal. Okay, so Che Diaz, I guess they're done with the podcast because they're making a pilot, which only takes a few weeks. And if you had a real podcast that wasn't a live radio show, you could bank a few episodes, but whatever. And then Che is like, I'm going to California and making a pilot. And her grandmother's like, what's a pilot? And Miranda's like, I don't know. You don't know what a pilot is? Yes, you do, Miranda. Because first of all, you went to LA with your friend Carrie when they were trying to shop her column around to be a movie. I mean, that's not a TV pilot, but you know what one is. You've been in the business area before. Your best friend Samantha there was a publicist. I'm sure she worked with actors like Smith Jerrod, for example. I'm sure he had a pilot at one time. And by the way, you said at the beginning of the series, I've been watching a lot of streaming. Well, guess what? The first episode of every show you watched on streaming was called The Pilot. I guess when you're 50, you don't know what pilots are anymore, because all the information just flies out of your head. So anyway, now Miranda is going to go with Che to California and just give up on her. See, the Sex and the City, episode 10, it just, everyone gets back to basics. You know, Miranda's just like, I don't actually care about human rights. See you later. And so she's going to leave. And then Carrie is like, so you're just leaving? You can't go on that fun Paris trip with me and watch me mope about my dead husband and watch his ashes go in the river? I mean, I would rather do that than go watch Che Diaz do anything. And then they've told Che Diaz, the studio in Hollywood said, you're the next Roseanne. And then Che has the balls to say, not the current Roseanne, the 1980s Roseanne. Bitch, you're not even as good as the current Roseanne when she's on Twitter saying racial slurs. She's still funnier than you. Anyway, so Carrie says to Miranda, in the exact conversation that Miranda had with Carrie when she was leaving to be with Alexander Petrovsky in Paris, literally the same conversation, Carrie's like, what are you going to do in LA? Just laugh at someone? It's just like when Miranda said to Carrie, what are you going to do in Paris? Eat croissant? I always hated that part. It's like, you're the asshole for calling it croissant. You're in New York. You don't have to pronounce it correctly. It's not going to offend anyone. Eat croissant. Is that even in the right tense? Eat croissants. Is there not an S? Is there? Even if there is, say it improperly because it sounds normal to us. You know, we're not in Paris. Eat croissant. It haunts my dreams. You understand? And at least what Carrie was leaving to go do was more fun. Well, couldn't she have said pastries, profiteroles, drink champagne? I mean, something. Even if the line was written for me, eat croissants. Eat croissant, and it said, pronounce it croissant. I would say, it just doesn't, it's going to take me out of the scene. Can I say eat croissants? Or can I call it pastries? Just eat croissant. It just sounds stupid. Like I sound like an asshole. And I'm trying to be not the asshole in this scene. Can we? But see, she's probably the one that wanted to pronounce it that way. So, what I love about this is Miranda is suddenly, I don't care about my human rights thing that I worked for. So, Miranda's like, I don't care about my human rights internship that I worked so hard to get. It's just like Cynthia Nixon, who's like, I didn't become governor in the first try. Guess I'm out of politics and making 2 TV shows now. No substance. And I've always known it. Anyway, bye-bye, Che. Good luck in Hollywood. I'm glad that I got chills at the end, spoiler alert, when Carrie said she does her own solo podcast with the producer. This is what they should have done episode. There never should have been X, Y, Me. And when Carrie took calls on her podcast, not a thing. Michael Patrick King, you actually do a podcast. Are you so out of touch that you don't realize what you're doing? There's no calls. Yes, you can do calls on a podcast technically, but it's not live. It's just, can't you just read emails from people just to talk to people? calls. No one wants to hear the other person. Hello, I'm having trouble with love. Anyway, so Carrie's ends the podcast. This is Carrie Bradshaw, and you're listening to Sex in the City. And I was like, yes, we're getting there. We're getting there in the last episode, which could potentially be the last episode of the entire show. But we got to where we should have been in the pilot. You know, the thing that Miranda doesn't know what that is. So, what's going on with the other characters? We got Seema just smoking cigarettes in bed naked with the Eurotrash guy from the club. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to say Eurotrash anymore. You can cancel me. I am German and Polish, so I don't know. Anyway, I just love the commitment to her smoking, and they're staying on a smoking floor of a hotel, and they haven't gotten out of bed in 3 days, and I'm just like, good for you. You have a good time. You deserve it. You've been hanging out with Carrie for months. You needed to have some fucking fun. Charlotte Rock is having a they mitzvah. Again, I don't care about anyone's kids. Have a they, have a thing, do a bar mitzvah, do a bat mitzvah, be Jewish, be don't, who cares, your child, I'm bored. Love Rabbi Jen, as Charlotte says 50 times, the trans rabbi, but the actor Hari Neff, she can do no wrong. I'm not sure of her pronouns. I think it's she, apologies. But what a fucking fascinating, amazing presence, like in show business. So I'm all about Rabbi Jen. I want Rabbi Jen and Anthony to just have a spinoff, and maybe Seema. I want the three of them to just go on adventures together. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anthony's there. He made some new kind of hot guy bread challah that's sourdough, and it's very upsetting to Harry because his daughter's trans, and somehow sourdough challah is just the last straw for him or something. We know Steve in this episode. I guess he couldn't hear the stage manager calling him to set, so I don't know, he didn't show up. That's actually a mean joke because David has hearing aids in real life. That was not a dig on people with hearing aids. It was just how they treat Steve. You know, I wish Steve had been in the episode. Okay, so no Steve in this episode. Partial bummer, but then at least he doesn't have to suffer the indignity of acting like he still loves Miranda and can't move on and can't take his one ball that's left and, you know, tell her to fuck off. Who else? Oh, Naya, her husband, he's going on tour, so they're gonna see what it's like to not be together. And I don't really care because, again, your plot revolves around children, and I'm too old to care, and none of my friends are at an age anymore where they're deciding whether or not to have kids. They either have them and they're like, oh, that was hard, or they don't have them and they're like, psyched, great decision, not interested. Who else? Oh, getting back to basics for Sex in the City. Then we've got LTW. They're just, the last episode, they're like, you know what? Let's just forget, you know, trying to be inclusive in a proper way. They just right back. LTW has got 2 lines. She's emotionally supporting the white woman while wearing some sequined turban that may or may not be culturally offensive. So then, who else was in this episode? Was Magda in it? No, she's dead. Oh, the boring teacher. I like him. I like the purpose that he served. Good for him. I can't remember what else was going on with anyone else. I have to get back to my notes here. I'm all over the place. I'm not even going in order of anything. Oh, okay. Oh, Samantha was in this episode. I loved seeing Samantha, even though it was over text. If we're gonna have a fantasy world where Samantha exists, I don't like the one that they started us with, where she somehow makes a lot of money off Carrie, who's paying her to be a publicist. No, she never was. And then leaves town because she's mad at Carrie and says, you're using me as an ATM. I don't know, what was it again? She leaves town and says that, who was the ATM in that scenario? I don't fucking remember. Wait, the ATM is the thing you take money out of. So Carrie felt Samantha was treating her like an ATM. That's why I can't even process it, because it's so fucking stupid. Okay, so Samantha's in this, even though it's only by text, and I enjoy this Samantha, because this reminds me of the old Samantha, always willing to forgive her friends who are the worst people on earth, as she has always been the perfect friend. And so when Carrie texts her from Paris, says, I'm in Paris, want to get a cocktail. It's like, oh, that's right, Samantha's in London. Just get on that channel, girl, but change your outfit first. Carrie's weird Dunkin' Donuts colors. I mean, that's the only thing about that dress that was amazing. It's literally the Dunkin' Donuts logo colors. I loved it. If she'd been holding a Dunkin's, it would have been amazing, just like the matching of it all, But so I hope she changes before she gets on the channel. But just, I'm so glad, even in a reality that doesn't exist, that we're never going to see, that she's going to see Samantha. And, it would have been nice to have all the 4 girls get together, even in this fake reality that we're never seeing. But Miranda couldn't go to Paris because she had to follow Che. And even though Carrie invited Miranda and Charlotte, once Miranda couldn't go, Carrie's just like, fuck the whole trip. And just Charlotte got fucked, just because Miranda's in love with a mediocre comedian. I mean, it really does affect everyone's life. You see, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. Like, you see how Che negatively affects everybody, unlike It's a Wonderful Life. I really wish Carrie had brought Miranda to Paris and pushed her off the bridge with big sashes. I know that's violent, but I'm feeling violence towards Miranda. I really am. So, then, okay, but we did still have to suffer through the last moments of the X, Y, and Me podcast. Oh my God, that scene was like 30 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. So they're all telling their worst breakup stories. And Bobby Lee's was fine. She pretended to have COVID. Okay, I got. And then Che's didn't make any sense. Che's like, she broke up with me over FaceTime. And I'm thinking, that's kind of nice. I mean, it's not a text, which is kind of rude, and you're not wasting someone's time having them show up in person so that you can just dump them. It's like, when you want to break up with someone, you want it to end. And sometimes you can't meet up with them in person because you may get roped into like more talking and let's just hang out and I'm going to try to kiss you. I think a FaceTime is great. And then she's like, yeah, I mean, then she says, it was the nicest thing in the world. At first, I didn't know what was going on. It's like, that's how all breakups start. Until someone says, I think we should break up, you don't know what's going on. And then she's like, I should have called her to FaceTime, like two-faced. But that's not being two-faced if you FaceTime someone and tell the fucking truth. But Michael Patrick King, I can see it. I can see him in wherever he writes from, the top of his ivory tower. Oh my God, I have a 2 FaceTime pun. Where is everybody? I have a 2 FaceTime pun. And he jams it in and makes it a joke, even though it's a joke that doesn't make any sense. It would make sense if your lover FaceTimed you while they were having sex with someone else by accident. They butt dialed you on FaceTime and you're watching your girlfriend, your boyfriend have sex with someone else. And then you can be like, they too FaceTimed me. That's the joke, MPK. Call me next season. Anyway, so Carrie has to one-up them all with her breakup story. She's like, my husband died. I'm like, that's not a breakup. And I'll tell you right now, I've been broken up with. I've had my heart smashed. I've taken years to get over things. And guess what would have been easier? If the person died. I'm telling you, because if God came down and said, you and this person cannot be together anymore, do you want them to die or do you want them to dump you? When you truly love someone, you want them to be happy. Bullshit. It doesn't count. Death doesn't count as a breakup because Big still loved her till the very end. He even waited for her to get home from that stupid recital so that he could die in her face. That's love. He wanted to look at her while he died. Okay? Breakups is someone choosing not to love you anymore, and then you're going to see all their updates on social media as they get married to someone else, even though they told you they didn't believe in marriage. Like, I see this all the time. That Carrie should have told the Post-it note story. We all want to reminisce. Give us that, Michael Patrick King. Why do you withhold what we want from us, you sadist? And Carrie's like, I win. What did you win? Shutting down. You made Che cancel the podcast. They were probably so tired of you fucking not getting the hang of how a podcast works, even though that's not really a podcast, so we can't really blame Carrie for this one. I take it back. Okay, so let's try to do a more top to bottom, well-rounded recap. I'm all over the place. All of a sudden, this like part of my nose is super red. I don't know what's happening. Okay. I had heard from a friend who got an advanced screening of this episode. This friend was like, it's such a disaster. I'm so angry. I can't take it. They led us down all these paths only to this and that us. And maybe because that expectation was in my head, and maybe because I hated last week's episode so much that I just was like, this is gonna fucking suck. And I didn't hate it. I felt like the theme, you know, when Miranda and Carrie are arguing and Miranda is saying that she's going to LA with Che, and she's saying, well, can't people change and even change back if they want to? That set us up nicely for her changing her hair back to red. And what I got from that, and from Carrie re-upping her column really as a podcast, which you know I have said since day one, that's what it should have been, except not with the phone calls, but whatever. And calling it Sex and the City. You know, it's cool because the show, as you know, was not called Sex and the City. It wasn't called Sex and the City, the reboot. It was called And Just Like That, right? So it was cool because it felt like, okay, it felt like the show was trying to tell this story. And I didn't listen to the Writers' Room podcast yet, so I didn't want it to get in my way of thinking. But so if I'm right, I swear I didn't copy them. And if I'm wrong, I probably am because I haven't been right about what their intentions are this whole time. But it seemed like they were trying to tell a story of, we went through all these changes, you know, from there were deaths, there were breakups, there were disappointments, there was, you know, some cultural awakenings where we're trying to do better. And at the end of the day, as much as we've changed, we can still return to ourselves. And I do relate as a woman of a certain age. As I got closer to 50, I feel more 18 than I ever did. I feel more like the kid me than I ever did. And I'm talking to a few other friends of mine and a couple friends of mine that like I just got back in touch with after 20 years, where it's like we feel literally like teenagers in our hearts with, it's not the, and I don't even mean the fun part of being a teenager where you feel like wild and reckless and have a lot of energy, like that too, but going through some growing pains again. And some of it is physical, like hormonal, you know, it's like puberty, then there's menopause, you know, but also truly emotional, like, is this what I want? Or was I right about what I wanted back then and I didn't do it? There's just a lot of reflection. The good part is there's less angst about it. And there's more of this like acceptance of like, I don't know what I should have done here or there, but it's nice to know that there's this part of me that still understands the old me. I find it a kind of a beautiful process. So I felt, maybe I'm giving it way too much credit. I felt like that is what the show was trying to say in a way. Side note, funny story. My good friend Allison Castillo, who has done for you diehard No Fun podcast fans years ago, when we were both living in LA at the same time, because she was in New York and then I moved to LA and then she was always in New York and then she moved to LA for a little bit. Now she's in Florida. So anyway, when she'd come on and we would do advice episodes sometimes, and she loves giving advice. And we've been watching the show like over voice memo together, and she happened to be in New York last weekend and she was only here for like a day or two, and we went to lunch. And we were talking about the show, and Allison is a little older than me. She's in her early 50s, and she's already gone through menopause and hasn't had her period in years. She's like, that Charlotte storyline, I mean, that was so annoying. Like, I know that sometimes people get breakthrough periods, but like whatever, and who cares, and like I hate it. And then we were making fun of Che Diaz. I'm like, how about in the diner, Che Diaz? Like, do they have to recognize her everywhere? Like that she goes, she can't even go to a fucking diner. And we literally went to this place that we wanted to go for lunch, but they were closed early. And Allison was like, well, there's this diner around the corner. And I'm like, I'm not totally into diner food, but like, I'll go. And we walk in, and the woman seating us was like, oh my God, Jen Kirkman, I'm the biggest fan. I love your comedy. It was hilarious. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just making fun of Che Diaz getting recognized in diners. And then Allison the next day called me, was like, I got my period again. She's like, does this show have superpowers? It was the weirdest thing. She hadn't had her period in years, and she got breakthrough bleeding just like Charlotte. So I don't know. So something's going on. Some freaky shit. So taking it back from the beginning. So we open the episode with what I was saying. They're telling their greatest breakup stories. Carrie, as usual, is a bummer and has to say, my husband died for the 50th time. Oh, her jewelry designer neighbor was not in this episode either. I still hope she's making that necklace that says my husband died so Carrie can stop saying it. And then we see the girls at lunch, and they're talking about Big, and Carrie's lamp above her bed has been going on and off by itself. Now, remember I told you guys that I had the hot gossip from my hairdresser. Some of you doubted me. I even doubted me. There was a lamp store scene that was filmed in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and Carrie thought her lamp was haunted. Now, that whole thing that my hairdresser saw where she was smashing lamps and going crazy, now I don't know if that was a scene that they filmed as like an alternate take and decided not to go with that storyline. I don't know if they filmed, a lot of times they would film things to throw off the press and paparazzi, and I feel like maybe she watched like a thing like that, because I don't know why people were allowed to stand so close and watch. Normally you can stand across the street, but you wouldn't be able to hear the dialogue or anything. I mean, you would have to have the whole block roped off or something like that, because there's just so much that goes into the production. All these trucks would have to be on the street and all this kind of stuff. So, and trailers for the actors, and then like the little video village where the directors watch what's happening through this. So you wouldn't be able to get close at all. Anything filmed on the street, you're not totally privy to. So my leg is completely asleep, like Miranda at the picnic. Oh my God, I have to stand up. I really shouldn't be doing this. It's not, Well, I'll pour a little wine while I'm waiting for my leg not to be asleep. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've just revealed that I'm wearing sweatpants, even though this is a cute outfit on top. My leg is asleep. I should bounce up and down. I should bounce up and down. Okay. Just gonna have to tap my leg out. It's getting better, but it's gonna fall asleep again. I'm just gonna keep tapping it off to the side. So she's talking to, so this is what happened. Carrie goes on that date with the kind of boring teacher, and they're walking home, and they've had a nice time, and he says, I'd like to kiss you. Well, then before that, when she's like, this is me, he says, oh, yeah, we used to live in a brownstone before the kids got older. It's like, dude, enough. We know, your wife died. It's also like not that, I mean, there's a million types of apartments in New York, not just brownstones, but it's not that crazy to have lived in one. So whether you own the whole thing, whether you're renting, so for him to be like, oh, wow, I lived in one, like, yeah, a third of the city did, so not that wild of a story. So that was just like a massive bummer, which I'm sure was written for that purpose. So, you know, good on ya, writers, for making him the bummer that he's supposed to be. And then he says to Carrie, can I kiss you? And she says, yeah, and they kiss, and it's like nothing passionate. And she goes inside and she texts Samantha, which what I love about that is she knows her friends are no fun. She knows that Charlotte is just like all about the kids, Maybe she would have texted Stanford in the past, but they, he's gone. Rest in peace, Willie, but Stanford, like, they did a weird job explaining where he went. And then Anthony, I don't know, he'd just be like, whatever, So it's like Samantha, and this is what they texted. I transcribed it. But first of all, when she's texting Samantha on her phone, there's no picture of Samantha. It's just an empty avatar. I'm like, do we have to keep doing Samantha so dirty? Put a fucking fabulous picture of her in there so we can see Kim Cattrall's face. Thank you. Maybe there's some kind of contractual thing. I don't know. But Carrie texted, I kissed a man. And Samantha texts back, the first of many. How was it? Oh, I'll be Samantha. Carrie, I kissed a man. The first of many. How was it? It wasn't big. So it was small. Want to talk? Soon. So she's like, okay. So they're getting there. Their friendship is like healing. So then she goes to lunch with so then she goes to bed and the lamp goes on by itself. And she says something at lunch the next day that she feels weird, that she kissed another man. It wasn't big, and she says to the girls that she doesn't like that he asked if he could kiss her. She's like, the thing that bothered me about that is she kind of acted like, is this what we're doing now? And I'm really glad she ended up making out with the producer at the end of the episode, just so that it didn't become a thing of like, everything is so woke now that everybody has to ask if it's okay to kiss you. I don't know what that accent is, and it's like, it almost was going down that track, but it didn't. But I knew what she meant. It's like, if there was true passion between the two of them, they would have just kissed. I could see a thing where someone asks you, can I kiss you? And you're like, I thought you never asked, or something. Like, even if them asking you is like a minor bummer, because you would have rather a more romantic moment, if you really want to kiss them, you'd be like, whatever, you go for it. But it just was that there's no romance between them. But I like the idea of exploring, how do you know when there's just no chemistry between you and the person, or if you're truly not ready. And I've felt that way before. I'm sure we've all gone through similar things where it's like, is this the chemistry, or am I just dead inside now, forever? And so, but when she's talking about it, she's like, and then my lamp started blinking on and off. And I think Big is trying to contact me. And she says to the lamp, like, I went on a date, and I don't know, I think it's cute. Like, I like that. And I know that she knows that Big would want her to be happy and move on. And Charlotte says something like, if Big is in heaven, and you think he's contacting you through the lamp to make you feel bad that you kissed another man, no way, And Miranda is losing her shit. And she's like, heaven? Wait a minute, Carrie. And Carrie just goes along with Charlotte's heaven thing. And she's like, yeah, and Miranda's like, wait a minute, Carrie, you believe in the afterlife now? You didn't used to. And Carrie's like, well, and it was the only time I agreed with her, like saying, well, when your husband fucking dies, maybe you start to believe in the fucking afterlife. I mean, I am the same way, It's like, I think I said it in the other video. It's like, yeah, when people die, you bet your ass I'm thinking about the afterlife and just making up stories about how they're watching over. It feels nice. And if it doesn't feel nice to you, then great, don't do it. But don't criticize, like, if you're having a conceptual argument about the afterlife and nobody has died, then yeah, of course, you can argue that heaven was this construct when, like, before even people knew the earth was round, and there was this sense of like good is up and bad is down, and that's how, I get it. But so I'm not really interested in like literally talking about heaven and hell, or like believing in it in that literal way. But there's something to be said for energies. Like, I've had dreams about people. I've had 3 dreams about people I know who died, and they'd been dead and hadn't been found yet. And I had dreams the night before they were found. And in each dream, it was very clear they were not of this world anymore. They said weird shit to me, and I have proof of every single death where I've said to someone, I dreamt about blank last night, and they said some weird shit about where they are now or something, and I don't know, I should give them a call. Dead. So, I don't know, there's something out there, some kind of energy. Maybe not. But the point is, her husband has not been dead a year. Again, the timeline also made no sense in this episode, but whatever. And Miranda is giving her shit about talking about the afterlife, and it's like, listen to me, bitch. You believe in a terrible comedian who has never written a punchline. You believe in someone who is smoking pot, getting drunk, being a dick. Let Carrie believe in the afterlife so she can try to get over her fucking husband. I know you don't care anymore about husbands and straight people, but fuck right off. I would be like, you know what? You're being a massive cunt, and fuck you. And fuck your fucking running for governor and your secret Bernie bro-isms, Cynthia Nixon. I would just start confusing the two. Like, we get it. You're the intellectual. But don't do that to someone who's grieving and they need a little fucking magic. She was having a hard time deciphering moving on. And then later on, like, where to put his ashes. And it's like, that thinking she's connected to him and him giving her the permission to move on is a huge thing that widows go through. It's absolutely real and huge. And I just, fuck you, Miranda. Carrie didn't say fucking anything to you about Che, and you let her finger you while you screamed like a cow giving birth to a fucking porcupine in her kitchen, and you let her pee herself on the bed. She gets to talk about the afterlife. She gets to talk about fucking COVID is a hoax if she wants to. No, she doesn't get to do that. But I really was just like, I've been done with this character, but like in a funny way, but I'm like, I'm really done with this character. That is so fucking toxic. That is toxic behavior. Like, literally, I have a friend who literally believes in heaven. Literally. I do not. And I sometimes can't believe when this friend talks and they say that. And I think it's not my fucking business. If they want to talk about heaven, I don't have to lie and be like, I love heaven. I think about it all the time. But I can respect it because, again, it can't be proven right now. So that's what Charlotte added to the conversation. It was like, so I'm not going to argue with my friend about heaven. I'm going to respect that they need this. Well, first of all, it's a belief. It's not even my friend going, I need this. But the belief works for them. It's of great comfort. When they talk about it, they're not talking about it in a destructive way or about excluding other people. And even though I don't relate at all and I don't have the same beliefs, I would never, ever disrespect that friend and say I don't even think weird things about them. I'm literally just like, wow, that is trippy to me. That like there is wow, I just don't see it that way. But I would never. I literally can't get off the subject because it makes me so angry. This is not just an example of, woo-woo versus not. This is like you're being a colossal cunt. Anyway, so Carrie thinks Big's talking to her through the lamp, and clearly he is. Like, she takes the lamp to the shop, and she says to the guy there, it's an old lamp. Do you find this problem with old lamps that they just go on and off for no reason? And he's like, no, that's kind of weird. She leaves it there. She picks it up. He's like, there was a faulty wire. I changed it. And she's like, oh, so you fixed it. And you can see she's kind of bummed, obviously, because she now thinks, oh, well, if there was a faulty wire, then Big probably wasn't talking to me. And then again, she brings the lamp home, she goes to bed, and she says to Big, she says to the lamp, if you're really, talking to me through the lamp. Blink, do something, and nothing happens. And she turns the lamp off, and she lays down on her pillow, and she lays there for a few minutes, and then boom, the lamp goes on, and she's like, oh, that's so you. And so then she has a dream. She turns the lamp back off. She has a dream. I think they probably edited the dream out because I think it had Chris Noth in it, and he raped everybody up in here, and so they took it out. But in the dream, she's like in Paris, and so when she wakes up, the lamp is on and shining in her face, and she realizes, oh, I have to put Big's ashes in Paris. Before that, there was a scene with Big's brother. I'm like, who is this guy? I've never seen him. Was he at the funeral? Who cares? But she has lunch with him, and he's like, what are we going to do with Big? And he shows her these like grave plots that he has with his family. It's so depressing. He's like, Big can be here, and since my wife and I split up, you can be buried there, and you two could be together forever. And it's just like, in that moment, you just felt so like trapped. Like, well, what if she meets someone else? Like, and then marries that guy, and then she's going to be buried with Big. Like, you knew the right thing is to throw his ashes somewhere meaningful so they could be together forever in that ethereal sense, but she can still move on here on Earth. So I think that's the best move, by the way. Like, if you got married to someone and you bought plots together, that's hard. If someone dies first and you're like, oh, I might move on, and now the plots, oh God. Maybe you'd put like some ashes there and some with your new person. It's a lot of you to go around. I don't know. It's complicated stuff. So Carrie says to Charlotte and Miranda, hey, it's the 1-year anniversary of Big's death. I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to spread his ashes. Do you guys want to come with me? The whole trip is on me. And Miranda's like, oh, let me check my schedule. And then she's like, okay, Che's taping is the 9th, but maybe I could come on the 10th. And Carrie's like, you know what? I don't want you to fly from LA to Paris. It's a 14-hour flight. You're not going to come for one day and then fly back and fall asleep at Che's taping. Like, don't worry about it. And Miranda's like, so then, Charlotte gets in on the conversation, and she's all excited for Paris. And Carrie's like, well, Miranda can't come. And you know what? I need to do this by myself, blah, blah. And Charlotte's like, oh, all right, fucking bummer. So Carrie goes to Paris. Again, she's wearing this orange and pink dress, Dunkin' Donuts colors. It's really hideous. I don't like off-the-shoulder things in too low cut. It just always distracts me. Like, I feel like someone's boobs are gonna fall out. It seems like so much work. I hate strapless. And I love crazy-ass outfits. Like, I don't care about colors that go together. I don't care about things that are big and make no sense and are inconvenient, but I just hate strapless. I just fucking hate it. So she's there, and she's got a purse. It's gorgeous. And it's Eiffel Tower with, crystals on it. And she just like empties it, and it's Big's ashes. And I'm like, but now you can never use that purse again, because I don't know if you guys have dealt with ashes, but they stick. And that ashes are going to be in the inside of the purse. So you're just going to like have an ashy purse that you keep in your, like, they weren't even in the bag that they come in. Like, usually they're in a bag in the thing. And then you take the bag out. And it's just very strange to me that, like, we had to have a purse. I don't know. It was just like, because at one point she would have had to transfer the ashes from the thing they sent them in to the purse. And how did that go? Were they like flying everywhere? I don't know. I didn't love it. I feel like once they're in the thing, unless you're going to take some out and give them to someone, don't transfer them into a thing and then throw them over the river. Seems like a lot. Like, don't leave the man alone. And then she texts Samantha, blah, blah, blah. So bringing it back to Miranda goes to see Naya, and she's like, yeah, I'm done like caring about Black people, so I'm not going to do the internship. And she's like, I'm in love. I'm going to LA. It's like, why does she have to go to LA? Like, okay. So Naya's like, but you worked really hard to get this, and this internship is like impossible to get. Like, I can't believe Miranda's throwing it away. And again, what drives me crazy is I know that the writers think she's taking a chance on love, and isn't that great? And it's like, no, because it's all happening too fast, and she just had a drinking problem, which I don't believe she's a legit alcoholic, but she's just transferring one obsession to another. Like she's in a manic phase around Che. And so it's not the best time to make decisions about relationships like that and jobs. And it's like, how is she, like, how much an entitled white woman are you? Like, how much of an entitled white woman are you that you think, oh, well, this internship was really hard to get. But she must think she's going to be able to just pick it back up where she left off when she gets back. And I don't even know. So, and Naya's like, well, my husband and I, I'm just more upset because my husband went on tour and I thought you and I could hang out more. I'm like, no, you should be more upset that a white woman is sitting in front of you who has decided she no longer wants to work for human rights. That's why you should be upset. You shouldn't want to hang out with this annoying person. So, once again, it's like nobody's really calling Miranda on her shit. Carrie a little bit, but so then, so Rock is having a they mitzvah. Fine, it's just that they say it so many times. They mitzvah, they mitzvah. Why just call it a rock mitzvah? That would be cuter. And it also kind of rhymes with ba or bat. So anyway, Charlotte's like, the trans rabbi is in. She says it 50 times. Again, Hari Neff, love. Such a fan. And Rabbi Jen was like a super fun character. So basically, it's that Rock has not learned their Torah, and Rabbi Jen is like, Rock doesn't know anything. This may not go so well. And then that makes Harry realize all the other rabbis that said no, it was because Rock hadn't studied the Torah. And Charlotte had been studying, and Rock says to her, Charlotte says to her, you've been studying for weeks, just get they mitzvah. And Rock's like, no, you've been studying for weeks. And then Anthony yells at Rock and is like, listen to me, get your shit together. I wanted to play blah, blah, blah in high school, but they said I was too much of a fairy. He's like, you never thought there'd be homophobia in the theater. And I just loved that line, and I loved that concept, and it was totally true in my high school. My gay friend couldn't get parts, and I was like, he's the only person that actually likes theater. What is happening? So anyway, but then they get to, meaning the whole gang, gets to the ceremony, and Rock is backstage, like, I don't want to go, I don't want to do it. And Charlotte is like, blah, 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 you have to. And Rock's like, I just don't believe it. And, and so Charlotte and Harry are like, oh my God. And then, as I said before, Charlotte finds LTW, who's just there to say something uplifting. And then it's like, you're an amazing mother. And then Charlotte gets reinvigorated and she runs backstage and she's like, listen, Rock, blah, 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 you're going to do this. And Rock's like, no, I don't want to be any label. I don't even want to be non-binary. I'm not her. I'm not him. I'm not non-binary. I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not Jewish. I'm not even a New Yorker. And then, Charlotte and Harry are like, oh my God. I thought that was very cute. I kind of appreciated that, like, Rock's take on everything is like, I don't want any labels, and then basically says, I'm 13. Can I just be me? Which I kind of liked too, because it was an inverse of kind of what Miranda's saying as an older person, which is, I may not stay wherever I'm at. I may keep changing. I may revert back a little bit, or I don't know, but just right now, this is what I am. And I'm not on Miranda's side. I know that's what she thinks she's doing and she's wrong, but I'm into it for Rock, because Rock's just like, I'm 13, I'm figuring everything out. Like, so I don't even know what to label what yet, like religion and gender, like this is all big stuff, and like, I'm not doing it. And so Charlotte's like, well, somebody's gonna get bar mitzvahed, and it's like, or they mitzvahed, and it's like, duh, we know what's gonna happen. So cut to Charlotte, like, Baruch atah, blah, blah, blah. That's all I know from whenever my Jewish friends start singing their bar and bat mitzvah songs. So Charlotte gets bat mitzvahed, which is cute. Everybody's happy. Rock comes up, gives her a hug. All good in the hood. I guess Lily must be not bleeding this week because she's not freaking out, having a panic attack. So that was nice. And then we see, as we wind down the episode, is there more? Oh my God, I forgot the most important part. So, Che invites Miranda to meet their family. And Miranda ends up at this venue. It's kind of like a Spanish restaurant, nightclub. I don't really know exactly what it is. There's lots of neon signs everywhere. And Miranda's kind of like, I thought I was meeting your family. And Che's like, you are, and you're meeting a lot of other people I care about. And so Che sits Miranda down in between her two aunts, I think it was. I can't remember if it was aunts or grandmothers. I think it was aunts. And then Che gets on stage, does 2 shots before, because apparently they can't perform without that. I guess we're not concerned with that at all. 2 shots is a lot. Anyway, but starts singing California Girls with the band. And I'm like, what's happening? Now, Sada Ramirez in real life has an amazing voice. Like, holy shit. Holy shit, they can sing. But this wasn't good enough singing. Like, if I didn't know that, I would have no idea that this was like a fucking rock star Broadway singer. Like, no clue. So I was like, okay. Because they added a scene for them to sing in to show off the voice, but I didn't feel like it showed. But also, I have a trigger for California Girls. I've told this story in my stand-up back in the day. When in the 80s, I was not in the popular group, did not want to be. Those girls were like rich and boring and mean. But there was a talent show at my school. It was the first and last talent show. And the girls wanted to do a dance to California Girls. And I was entering the talent show by doing a tap dance to a jazz standard called Devil Takes a Holiday, a wordless song. And I thought I was going to win the talent show because I'm the only one who can tap dance. So anyway, the girls, the popular girls, wanted to choreograph a dance to California Girls. And they asked me to come over to their house to choreograph. And I'd never seen a mansion so big. And I was like, oh my God. So I said I would, but I was like, guys, you got to know, like, I'm also doing my own dance and the thing. Anyway, so I came over with my boombox, and I had worked on the choreography for like a fucking week. And I listened to that Beach Boys California Girls over and over and over. And I bring my boombox to Erin's house, and I'm like, okay, guys, here it is. Play. And I start doing, "The West Coast has the sunshine, and the girls all get so tan. I dig a fringe bikini," And they're staring at me and they're like, what song is this? And I'm like, it's California Girls. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're like, who is singing this? I'm like, the Beach Boys. And they're like, what? And they're like, we've already come up with our own dance. Tell us if you can like improve on it. And they hit their boombox and they're playing the David Lee Roth version. Now, I fucking hate David Lee Roth. I hate his voice. And I was like, guys, this is a cover. This isn't the original. I was like deeply offended by covers as a kid because I was like an old soul and listened to oldies at home with my parents. And I was like, it's the Beach Boys. Like, it's the California sound. Like, David Lee Roth completely takes the California sound out of it, like the surf sound. And they're like, what? I'm like 12 years old. And they're like, we're thinking of doing a dance where we're wearing bikinis. And I'm like, who at age 12 wants to get on stage in a bikini? And we're going to wear beach towels, and then the boys are going to whip our towels off. I'm like, they literally choreographed like a sexual harassment dance. And the boys that were going to do that were the boys that used to beat me up. And I was like, I can't be part, like, and I was like, I'm going to get in trouble by my mom if I'm part of this, by the way, because my mom would never have put up with a David Lee Roth cover and like not real dancing. Like, I'd been taking ballet, tap, jazz, and point. Point for only a couple years because you can't take it when you're too young. But since I was 4, I'm 12 at this point. I'm like, I'm a real dancer. Like, cannot. So that song is a massive trigger for me. And so I'm already triggered by Che Diaz. Now imagine California Girls comes on. I can't. So then Che starts being like, the reason I'm singing this is because Hollywood called, baby, which is not how Hollywood works. You have to pitch them something. And I'm going out and I'm making a pilot. And that's when Miranda's like, what's a pilot? Which she knows. So anyway, that was traumatizing, and that's why I forgot to talk about it. So lastly, here we are, the end of the episode, and I'm telling you, I fucking loved it. I felt like, and I know I've been had before. I am Charlie Brown, and Michael Patrick King is Lucy with the football. I already know. But I gotta tell you what I honestly felt. I felt hope that if there is a season 2, that we're gonna get back to some of the fun and some of the snark and some of the frivolity that we enjoyed in the original show. You know, like Carrie, so Bobby Lee's character, Jackie, has a party and he invites Carrie. Turns out it's a surprise wedding, which I think is super cute. I've been to a surprise wedding and it was fucking awesome with my friends Tammy and Tara. And they're just like, do you guys want to come over? Like wine night. And just like a bunch of people came over. They always have loved wine. And then they're like, we got married. And we're like, oh my God. They're like, we had to do it quick because, you know, it was only legal for like a second in California and then it wasn't. And then it was. And I was like, this is the best wedding of my fucking life. Like, just to not know. They were like, just bring a bottle of wine. We're all going to share wine. I think everyone should do a surprise wedding. And I know I'm a hypocrite because I did a wedding, but it's a whole thing. I didn't want to. Anyway, so Bobby was like, it's a surprise wedding, hey everybody. And it was cute. And I thought that was a fun thing. And so the podcast producer, Bobby didn't invite Che because he felt sort of like abandoned by Che canceling the podcast. And I was like, that's right. That's right, Jackie, Bobby. Sorry. So the podcast producer, who I have thought the whole time was going to be Carrie's love interest. And then I thought, I guess not, because this guy has like no lines. And at, you know, like the first few episodes, he would say things into the mic like, I agree with you, Carrie, you know. And he was always looking at her and he's like kind of hot and like, all right. So then he comes up to her at the wedding and he's like, I think you're a podcast. I think he said those words, which is weird. You're a podcast. But he's like, you were so great on the calls answering relationship questions. And I'm screaming, that's not a podcast. And he's like, I think you could host your own and I want to produce you solo. And I'm like, this is what I've been saying since the beginning. And she's like, what? Ooh. And he's like, you got to. One quick thing I just want to go back to. When Carrie went on the date with the boring teacher, there was this cute scene where they're talking about how they Googled each other. And he was like, I Googled you. He's like, so, New York Times bestselling author. And I'm like, thank you, nice person. You're the only fucking person, not even Carrie has mentioned she's written books, that is referencing the fact that she's an author. Everyone else is like, I love your podcast. No. Now you can say it because she's going to have her own. So anyway, she's podcasting in the studio, taking calls, don't even. And she's answering the girl and she's like, you know, I don't even know anymore. The answers to life or I don't know. I'm making fun of it. It's basically the monologue I gave at the beginning of this stupid recap. But, you know, she's saying something and then we pan and we see the producer looking at her through the booth window and he's like, okay, time to wrap up. And she's like, well, I'm Carrie Bradshaw, and this has been my first podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Sex in the City. And I was like, oh, we're back to normal. And then like Miranda dyed her hair red at the end, which I think that's what that was about. You know, I was just like, oh my God, it's actually called Sex in the City. She's not afraid to say the word sex. There's hope, there's hope, there's hope that we might have some fun. And so she and the podcast producer leave the building and they get in the elevator and he's like, that was great. And I knew this was coming and I was so happy it did. It paid off. They just looked at each other. Boom, they start making out and the elevator door shut. And I was like, yes. So it was the chemistry she didn't have with the teacher. Nobody had to ask, can I kiss you? It was just chemistry. And I was like, this is what I want. So I left smiling, going, you know what? A lot of things I disagree with. But some of the basics I feel we're getting back to. So we'll see what happens. I know there's a documentary. If I do anything about it, it's going to come out closer to the end of the month. I'm so inundated with work with my writing job and these two podcasts. So this whole recap thing started as a fluke. I was supposed to do less podcasting this year, and this ended up doubling my work. So I cannot do, like, I'm not going to recap another show right now. I would have to wait till one of my other jobs wraps up, which would be later in the summer. So, you know, thank you all who've been on this journey with me. If you stay subscribed at $3 a month, you still get 2 episodes of my podcast a month, and whatever random videos I might throw up that are about like pop culture things. They just won't be like fully realized 1 hour recaps, but hope you stay with me. I get if you leave. But I will probably do a smaller recap about the documentary. It may or may not even be video. It probably will just be audio, but I might do that closer to the end of the month. So thank you all for being here. And I guess, and just like that, we're done.